This Civic Media podcast is sponsored by UW Organ and Tissue Donation. Organ donations are desperately needed, and now is the right time to become an organ donor. Talk to your family. Get the dot. Save lives. Go to heroicdeed.com.
November 9th, 2024. If it's 7 o'clock on Saturday morning, it's time for This Week in Waukesha on WAUK 540 AM and the Civic Media app. I'm your host, Don Brown, and we're coming to you live and local from the office of former Alderman Don Paul Brown here in the Radio Park studios. I am honored to have one of Waukesha's favorite sons, Greg Bach, as my celebrity producer while the mighty Max Martinson is working on PBS Milwaukee's Letter to Santa. And best wishes to Max. You know, Greg, I'm really grateful for you being here. One, because I think you're awesome, but two, with all the work you're doing, the fact that you're coming in here on a Saturday to pitch in is greatly appreciated.
No, not a problem, my friend. It's always fun to be down here, especially in our beautiful Radio Park studios.
This is, I feel like Howard Stern or somebody like more famous.
Just keep it clean.
These modern, nothing like that. I just meant in terms of the all the great amenities here and the technology and just a professional setting, for a studio.
Absolutely.
But no, I got it. Hats off to Max. It'd be different if he was missing work for a junket to Vegas, or he was losing his shirt and all the debauchery that comes with that, or sleeping off a bachelor party or something. But he's living the dream. He's working on this PBS Milwaukee's Letters to Santa. My guest last week, Aiden West, is a student coordinating that 50-year tradition.
Yeah,
51st year. And it's always been produced and broadcast by students. So it's really great to be able to talk about that last week and to see Max, playing a role in that. So best of luck to him today. Yeah. So now Halloween is over, but the spooky season has just begun. And it's not a reference to what happened with the election this week. It's more a reference to today's guest, my good friend Josh Hughes of Waukesha Ghost Walks, who joins us via StreamYard. How are you, Josh?
Oh, I'm good. My 1-year-old decided to stay up till midnight, so
I can tell.
Extra coffee this morning.
Sounds good. Excellent. Well, great. So, Josh is going to tell us a lot. He's been on the show before, and usually before Halloween, but with everything we both had going on, it got pretty crowded. But again, the spooky season has really begun because Josh will be talking about some new offerings as well as some new projects he's working on with his craft, his specialty, his expertise in the paranormal. So we're looking forward to that discussion throughout the show today. We'll be acting locally, thinking globally with what I call a reason to believe. A little story on holiday season delivery theft, which has already begun, and it began right on my street. So we'll be talking a little bit about that today. Of course, it's Veterans Day weekend, so we'll be doing a salute to veterans, including some announcements on what's going on. A grand opening at Music Success. Greg, did you know Pat Nettesheim at all growing up in Waukesha? I met him through Rocker.
Oh, I did not know. I did not know him. No.
So, but he's the co-founder of Guitars for Vets.
Oh, nice. I've heard of that though.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful mission that provides guitars and guitar lessons free to vets that are dealing with PTSD. Yeah. But his new offering, Music Success, is it transcends that mission to not only include vets but other first responders, as well as anybody that's dealing with PTSD or any type of mental health condition. And there's a nonprofit store that sells, to raise money for it, that sells guitars secondhand and other musical equipment. It's a National Avenue, New Berlin, and what we now call the Berghart's Plaza. Used to be where the Walmart is. So we'll be talking more about that. And then also the Operation Honor Salute to Heroes that takes place every year. It's taking place today at the Schuetze Recreation Center, so a little more on that. And so much more. Oh, and then really looking forward to mark your calendars for Small Business Saturday. I always like to do a special show on that, and I'll be with the remote kit. I'll be there on site at a favorite location in downtown Waukesha to be announced. So But the guest of honor, or the main event here, is my good friend Josh Hughes, who is also, you work in at Carroll University, too, correct? Right?
Yep, I got the Carol hat on this morning.
There you go Pios. Yeah, they got, and of course
Yeah.
I forgot to mention we'll be doing the Carroll Minute, a lot of sports activities, including a conference championship. The girls soccer team will be participating in and hosting today at Schneider Stadium, following the football game. So it'll be a busy day, and you're on the campus there today.
I think
so
they're doing an orange out, right?
An orange out. That's right.
It's like the first 100 students get a free orange T-shirt. So
there you
that's
go.
gonna be very exciting.
Oh, neat. So that'll be fun. We're sitting our nephews today. One of them's our godson. So maybe if I might be able to convince them to, because they're big sports fans. That takes place at 1 o'clock today. So that hopefully we'll have enough time to make that. So terrific. So, and how are you enjoying your life at Carroll? This is you're starting your second year. Do I have that correctly?
Yeah, I started just after Labor Day of 23. So I had my first full academic year.
Sure.
Which is very exciting. So yeah, now it's kind of going into the second year with all that knowledge you learn.
Sure.
You know, the trading wheels are off, so to say.
Yeah.
So it's been good. Yeah.
That's great. You know, and if I remember correctly, when we first met, you were working for an agency, and I worked with an agency in Chicago, and I know there's a lot of stress in the agency life. So you got to be digging the, especially with a 1-year-old, you got to be digging the university life.
Yeah. It's a 3-minute walk to work every day. Nice, fun projects, great team, supportive staff.
Now I'm really jealous. Yeah. Oh, that's terrific. So, but of course, we're here to talk about your great passion, which is the paranormal, and it was something kind of you inherited from your dad too, if I remember. Is that correct?
Well,
or you kind of shared in it together?
It did start at a young age. You know, I grew up in Waukesha and experienced things in my childhood home that I couldn't quite explain. Right, so the curiosity in me, I went down to the school library, started looking at books about ghosts, the paranormal, you know, weird things in the universe.
That's right, because the house you grew up in was old, had some paranormal activity, you believe, right?
Yeah, just weird things I couldn't quite explain. So I wanted to learn more about it, and then how I got involved. Jump ahead to when I was, I think, 32. My dad had been seeing something in Cutler Park and showed me a photo of it. And then I got in touch with Mike, who owns American Ghost Walks. And I said, "What's with the ghost girl in Cutler Park?" And he's like, "I really don't know, but we need a tour guide for Waukesha. Do you want to do it?" So fast forward, and I just finished up my 4th season with Waukesha Ghost Walks. So
that's
interesting journey.
Now, fairness to Josh, I've seen that photo. It's a black and white, and I believe it to be authentic. And of course, I know, me being Irish and into the whole the mystical type of things, I guess I'm more prone to believe those types of. But it is, I mean, to dress somebody up like that in Victorian garb and just throw it in the middle of Cutler Park when there's obviously something else going on, nothing to do with history or anything like that.
Well, and you could say like, "Hey, Josh, didn't your dad fake that or make it up or
trick photography?"
But I will tell you, he does not know how to turn on a computer, and whenever his phone connect to his truck's Bluetooth, I get a phone call. So not very tech savvy, so I can certainly say that it is authentic.
Wow, that's very cool. And so, tell us again, for those who are getting to know you for the first time, what is a typical ghost walk like on the tour, and how do they participate, or how can they?
So I believe the website, it's either American Ghost Walks is the parent company. So if you're like, I don't want to check out Waukesha, but we've got Milwaukee, Chicago, all across the country. American Ghost Walks, you can find all the different.
Do you have one in Kenosha for Greg that he could check out?
I don't think so. There is Lake Geneva, which is kind of down in that area.
That could be cool.
I know that one was just featured on Discover Wisconsin.
Okay.
So they did a really nice program about that for the Halloween season. But
sure,
Waukesha, I think it's about $20. We start down by Discount Liquor.
Okay.
And then we go, I believe that would be.
And the guests can procure packaged goods from Discount Liquor to start the tour, correct?
If you're going to, you can sneak it. I'm not going to be the guy getting you in trouble for it.
Sure.
But people
that's
usually,
right. We do have open container laws. Yeah, so I stand. Don't want to.
Not going to promote it. I'll say that much.
Fair enough. Yeah. So.
But people usually, they get dinner downtown. The tours start at 7, so you can get dinner and drinks with friends, and then we start down by the dam by Discount Liquor, and then go through downtown through Cutler Park, go over by the old courthouse, and then end basically where we started. So it's a nice hour and a half, 2 hour tour, depending how
Wow.
chatty everybody is. And it's a lot of history about Waukesha, but like I say, it focuses on the spooky stuff.
Sure. Now, is it mostly groups that you do, or could individuals call you and say, "Hey, Josh, I'd love a tour. Can you?"
Yeah, if Don, if you called and said I want a private tour,
Okay.
there is a minimum price.
Yeah.
But with that minimum, you can bring as many people as you want.
Okay.
And I have this past summer, I did 2 private tours for Girl Scout groups. So I had one that was about 12 girls and one that was closer to 25. So
Yeah.
they really enjoyed it. They got into
I
the
bet.
stories quite a bit.
Sure. That's neat. Now, in addition to the tours, which we'll get back to because Josh will be talking about a new offering, you also you do your own detective work, or you've done projects where you've investigated paranormal activity at different sites, not only here in Wisconsin but around the world, right?
Yeah, so that's God, that's a whole segment in itself. But
Sure.
yeah, the past couple years I've been focusing on Waukesha. I tell the stories obviously, but now I've been starting to investigate the locations associated with the stories,
Sure.
meeting the people that have lived the stories themselves, and that has really added a new flavor to the tour that you might not be able to get anywhere else.
Okay.
So it's I've really become kind of like the expert in Waukesha's paranormal by being able to visit these spots.
Sure.
But yes, I have had paranormal groups when I went to UW Oshkosh.
Okay.
We investigated all across the Midwest, and then whenever I travel, I've been to Savannah, I've been to Ireland a few times. I do like to visit the haunted locations there, and
Sure.
I've had quite a few interesting experiences.
Yeah, we'll have a lot to talk about. Yeah, maybe as we get closer to St. Patrick's Day, we'll do a whole thing about paranormal in Ireland. We'll talk about fairy forts, which are very real.
Very real, yes.
And the fairies themselves. So, yeah, that's awesome. How are we doing on time, Greg?
We got a little over a minute left.
Sounds great. Well, yeah, we've got a lot to cover. In fact, for those of you Waukesha residents, maybe Greg would remember Little Lord Fauntleroy. Josh will have some. He'll be when we come back. We'll be talking about some more recent revelations on that, which may involve exhuming the body, and some of the projects he's working on. And next, we'll be acting locally, thinking globally here on This Week in Waukesha on WAUK 540 AM. And download us on the Civic Media app if you haven't already, and take us with you anywhere you go, along with all the great Civic Media programming. Share it out. Yeah. Help who you can. I know that you can. Talk about it. Talk about it. Oh, give it up. Share it out. Help who you can. Don't just talk about it. Talk about it. Don't be shy. Don't be shy.
You're listening to Civic Media. You can tune into any of our live shows on any radio station across the state with the Civic Media app. Find us in your phone's app store and listen anytime, anywhere.
Dear one, the world is waiting for the sunrise every morning.
Hey, you're listening to This Week in Waukesha on WAUK, and as always, I begin the second segment with this little ditty from Waukesha's favorite son, Les Paul. I know I'll be using that a lot today, and I forgot to mention in my agenda items that another favorite son we'll be talking about is playing in a state final for soccer, so stick around for that. A neighborhood boy used to play youth soccer with my son, so looking forward to sharing that story. But, yeah, going back to Les Paul, Greg, you might remember when Pat Kreitlow, and Greg produces the Up North News with Pat Kreitlow on Monday through Friday from 6 to 8. And Pat was he was in town in Milwaukee for an education conference, so he was doing this show in our old studio in Waukesha and invited me to come on as a guest for a few minutes. And that's why I first heard this song from Les Paul and Mary Ford. And I was like, I just fell in love with it. And so I get a lot of props, a lot of inspiration and advice from Pat Kreitlow and of course yourself, Greg, when I'm listening to that show. That's just fantastic stuff. And
Thank you.
And obviously I've been pretty outspoken about who I wanted to win this last election, and obviously sharing a lot of people's disappointment. And but I found some things along the way that give me a reason to believe. And one of them is this a post from Maxwell Taylor Kennedy, one of the sons of Robert F. Kennedy Sr. Yes, the brother of our next, Health and Human Services.
The guy who's going to get us all healthy and stuff, I guess.
Yeah, something
he
like
loves
that.
push-ups.
But Max, like the rest of his family members, were not supporting their brother in his effort, or who his brother ended up endorsing. But he put this great post in saying, it was the day after the election. I began reading an old book today that I had let lay around, and found it both helpful and a welcome respite. Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds by Charles Mackay. Mass hysteria and popular follies. There's something comforting in knowing that these things pass. My friend said with calm clarity, America has a way of figuring things out. She does, and she will. And in looking at, too, when you look at the election results in the state of Wisconsin, Trump's margin of victory, 31,352 votes, which is still very, very narrow by anyone's count. You have to remember, Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate, got 12,141 votes. RFK Jr., whose name was still on the ballot, 17,598. So you have a total third-party votes of 29,739, which gives you a margin of 1,613. And so, there's again, I know Trump won by a very wide margin when you look at the popular vote, and you have to, I guess, what do you say? Be respectful about that. I mean, it's and of course in the Electoral College too. No denying that. But when you look at where the other side could have won, I'd learned that there were seniors in assisted living that, including one of the school sisters of Notre Dame that wasn't being allowed to vote. A friend of mine had lobbied, and she went all the way to the top of the Archdiocese of Milwaukee. And really...
They wouldn't let her vote?
Well, they said she wasn't in the right. She had a stroke 6 months ago, but her mind, as you can imagine, like a lot of the school sisters of Notre Dame, was sharp as a tack.
Yeah.
And she'd actually been very... from her home in assisted living. As you know, the school sisters got kicked out of Elm Grove so that they could pave paradise and put up a big condo community, which is a big surprise to me in Elm Grove. But she, Sister Kathy, wasn't allowed to vote because she wasn't in the best condition. And her power of attorney from the Archdiocese had contacted my friend, Mary Jane Sanchez, by the way, of Waukesha, and said that, yes, she's not, it's my decision and she's not in the right condition. And when Mary Jane went to vote, she met an attorney for La Casa Frontera, which I guess is a local human rights organization. And
yes,
Mary Jane shared the story, and she's like, yeah, that's shyster poopy. You need two doctors to weigh in on whether or not she called this power of attorney at the Archdiocese. And next thing you know, Mary Jane gets a call from this woman at the Archdiocese. You can pick up your friend and take her to vote today. Really kind of short. Say, yeah, it's okay, Like she gave approval, but this attorney from La Casa Frontera read her the Riot Act.
Yeah.
And said you can't do that.
I don't care who you vote for, friends. You don't suppress someone's vote.
Well, yeah.
I don't care at all.
And you look at the senior community.
Especially a nun.
And and Trump might have won the senior community too. So, but the fact that people were not, and that's something I guess we need to think about moving forward is what arrangements are we making for the elderly, for the disabled, about, giving them access to voting. That's important no matter who's running. And so I think they're perhaps a missed opportunity moving forward. And again, I don't want to trash third-party voters. In fact, like Pat Kreitlow on his show had talked about, the problem with third parties is that someone runs at a national level, like for president, and then they join forces with some fledgling party, or they create their own party, and there's just not enough grassroots to support that.
Yeah.
And it dies. But what if you were to start one at a local level, especially in a state like Wisconsin, which obviously has played a key role in deciding the last 3 elections? And like I used to talk about my good friend Scott Allen, who's a very conservative Republican state rep. We don't believe in a lot of things, but we there are some things we share. And we used to talk about forming like a common sense party where you're actually aligning people from both sides of the equation. and you're coming up with solutions and the art of compromise and let's move forward. I think of that West Wing episode.
Which one? There are a lot of them.
The one where they wanted Glenn Close on she was a liberal judge, and they wanted her.
Season 5, The Supremes. That's a great episode.
And they convince a sitting judge to retire, played by Milo O'Shea, great Irish actor, and then giving the Republicans their guy, which was played by William Fitchner, this conservative, justice. And when the two meet at the White House, Glenn Close and William Fitchner, from my hometown, by the way, the discussion between them, the debate is very intellectual and it's respectful and it's civil and it's just, and all these ideas emanating from it.
Hey, Don, I hate to stop you right there.
Yeah, no.
That would never happen in real life.
But you look at that scenario, though, it's like a win-win.
Yeah, I understand.
And both sides can spike the ball.
Yeah.
And like that's how it should work, though. And I think there's still opportunities for that to work.
I think a lot of people talk about that and say that's how it should work.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we have to do a lot of reckoning with our own feelings before we can get there. So
we sure do. In the U.S., you remember 37% of the eligible population did not vote or could not vote, whatever you want to say. U.S. ranks 31st among democratic nations in national election turnout. So I think there's a lot of possibilities. There's also a lot of talk about getting rid of the Electoral College, which I'm not against. And again, it wouldn't have affected this election, but I think we don't live in the days where everyone in Georgia is a cotton farmer and everybody in the North is a factory worker. It's like we've become so diversified as a society that I just don't think the Electoral College is necessary. I love the idea of ranked elections, too.
Okay.
Which we can talk more about. I don't know if you have any familiarity or experience with that, but I think that's a great idea. And also, too, how much are we doing on time here?
We have 1 minute left on.
All right. Well, ask me about rules for radicals when we come back from the break, and we'll continue our conversation with Josh Hughes from Waukesha Ghost Walks and this very spooky episode of This Week in Waukesha, WUK, 540 AM, and the Civic Media app.
You're an organ donor, right? Well, here's a tragic fact. Approximately 20 people die each day waiting for precious donated organs. You could make a life-saving decision simply by getting that important dot on your driver's license. That little dot shows those who need to know that you've made a decision to donate organs at a critical time. Go to heroicdeed.com to learn more about the importance of organ donation and how you can make your wishes known. Talk to your family. Get the dot. Save lives. heroicdeed.com.
We're going to let this one play a little bit, Greg, if that's all right with you.
I'm cool.
Cool.
The lyrics are amazing, Don.
They sure are. Peter Garrett, is that his name, the lead singer? He was a legislator. I think might have even been like the prime minister at one point of Australia.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was very involved politically.
Yeah.
White Man King. That's The Dead Heart by Midnight Oil. So listen it out. Listen when you get a chance. Put it on YouTube. Great song, great band. Midnight Oil from the 80s.
Yeah.
All the way back to my college days. So we're back this week in Waukesha. My guest is Josh Hughes. We're going to talk about Waukesha Ghost Walks. But one final comment on acting locally, thinking globally is before we went to break, I was talking about Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky. You ever read that one, Greg?
I have not, no.
It is a primer for organizing. And I mention this because in 2008, when Barack Obama had won, and there was kind of this I guess blue revolution, whatever you want to call it, progressive revolution. They talked about a post-racial era, and the right were looking for an answer because Obama he'd won by a sizable margin. That the Democrats had, I think, at the time had taken the majority in the Congress in both houses, and great opportunities. And the right in their response, somebody in their, I guess, brain trust had come across this Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky, who was obviously a liberal radical, what should we call him, philosopher, if you will. University of Chicago, I think, was his base. And I've read it. It's an excellent book. It's only about 100 pages. It's all about organizing, local organizing.
Yeah.
And it became the primer, it became the playbook for the right that was very effective in helping them take back the House, I think, in those midterm elections, and I think this was at 2010.
Yeah.
As well as a lot of other success, and had led to, I guess we'd call it the Trump revolution, if you will. But a couple takeaways there is, everybody should read that book if they're interested in organizing or having more influence politically and locally. And the fact that someone from the right found this and said, "Hey, this works for us," it makes you think twice for any of those that are in favor of like book bans from libraries or schools, that you can learn something from your quote unquote enemy or opponent or from other cultures that can have some really great implications for what you're trying to achieve, especially locally or in this case nationally as well. So final thoughts on that. But Josh Hughes, thanks for your patience. I think you had another guest with you there for a second in the StreamYard. That was your baby?
Yeah, mommy had to do a couple of things quick during the break, so I'll take her, and if you
sure
need a little bit longer, she can sit on the first segment here. So
there you go.
Yeah,
Sounds
she
great.
decided staying up till midnight, and then waking up at 7 was enough sleep. So
I remember those days, and I always made sure there was good programming or something on when I got up in the middle of the night, so that I'd have something to enjoy while the baby was keeping me awake. So I found too is she's past the infant stage now, but I remember when my oldest son was born, his mom had this big bassinet, and he couldn't sleep. It was like sleeping in a huge box. I mean, it just didn't feel.
Yeah.
And I grabbed the car seat and put him in that and buckled him up and all that, and and bundled him up, and he slept through the night. And we did that until he got bigger. But that was always a great.
Sure.
I'm sure you've heard different things. Once they reach 12 pounds, they sleep through the night, and I've heard all these different. So it's never the same.
She's actually been quite good. Like I said, she's almost a year, and I think from like the second week, she sleeps pretty much 7 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Sure. That sounds amazing.
It has been. So I'm sorry people are trying to like stab me through the StreamYard here, but she's been a very good sleeper, except when she's like learning that new skill or whatever it may be. She goes through a sleep regression, and then it's like, wow, people experience this the entire first year. So we're very, very lucky.
Sounds great. So now returning to our conversation, now would be a good time if it's okay with you, because I want to kind of tease people with your new offering and make them wait.
Yeah,
but I don't want to wait to hear about what's going on with Little Lord Fauntleroy. And give us a background on that first for those who aren't familiar, like transplants like myself to Waukesha.
So I believe it was 1921. There was a little boy that was found in the quarry, which if you're familiar with Waukesha, there's those two big quarries right by the airport. This little boy's body was found in the quarry. They pull him out.
Murdered too, they believe, right?
Well, yeah, so they pulled him out. They thought he drowned, but when they looked at the body closer, it looked like he actually had been murdered. The back of his head was bashed in, and he was thrown in the quarry as like a disposal, right? So what's interesting about this boy that they found on that day is that to this day, we still have no idea who he is. They nicknamed him Little Lord Fauntleroy because at the time there was a very popular child series, and the main character was this little lord. And they named this boy this because he was in very, very nice clothing, as if he was like from a wealthy family.
Oh, when they found him.
Or maybe when they found him. Yes, wow. Very, very nice
clothing.
I
forgot about that part.
So what they did is, before social media, TV, all that sort of stuff, they actually propped this boy's body up in the front window of a funeral home downtown Waukesha. And they said, anybody that might think they know who he is, come by, take a look, and see if you know him. So essentially, you just had gawkers and looky-loos coming by to see a dead body, right? And
Kind of like the
after a
movie
week,
Unforgiven, but not, without the sign.
Very different times, right? You can
yeah.
imagine
Oh yeah.
going downtown Waukesha just to see a dead body. But a local woman actually raised enough money to give him a new suit, a coffin, and a tombstone, and he's buried up in Prairie Home Cemetery. A very small grave that just says "Unknown Boy Found in Quarry." So,
And if you ever go on the cemetery tour, which I highly recommend, I'm on the cemetery commission. It's a great tour of the cemetery. Just so much Waukesha history captured there, and back in the day, they used to have picnics there. I think like a Memorial Day or whatever. Right. So it was a very much a focal center of the community for many years.
Very much so. Yeah.
Governor Dreyfus is buried there. Les Paul, of course.
Yeah, and almost everybody associated with the story.
And your doctor veteran friend too, who we'll get to later in the segment.
Yep.
So, but that's exciting about Little Lord Fauntleroy because people still come. They put little toys on his headstone.
Yeah.
And and like I said, and I've even kind of made a little tribute of my own relating to my own family member of mine who had died young. That since I can't always fly back home. That on the day of is my brother's death, I'll go to Little Lord Fauntleroy and I'll put like a little toy there. And so, but what's the new? You said there's some new revelations or new information that's come forward.
Right. So I don't know. Sometimes I just kind of get the history bug, and I really start diving deep into these stories. And on my tour, people ask, why haven't they dug this boy up? Why aren't we further analyzing this? And I just say, like, I assume the city just doesn't want to, right?
Yeah.
And
there's a cost associated with it that's rather extravagant, I've been told. Anytime a body's
and
exhumed.
So I just say, it's better to let the dead rest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just reached out to the Waukesha County Medical Examiner, and I said, hey, I do this tour, and there's always this question about why haven't we dug up this boy and used our technology of 2024 to do DNA testing.
I apologize. There has been paranormal activity associated with the grave there, right? Or there in Prairie Home, right? Where they think people have seen at night Little Lord Fauntleroy running around or something like that.
People have said that they've seen a little boy in the cemetery. I personally haven't experienced anything. I've been there a number of times and used my gadgets to try to communicate, but I haven't had any experiences.
Okay.
But there is a growing interest to figure out who this boy is. And basically the medical examiner said we've disinterred bodies before to figure out who they are using DNA. Mm-hmm. And she says, quote, we are currently working on this investigation, and it is likely the disinterment will be planned at a later date.
Okay, that's encouraging then.
And so that as a historian and a filmmaker, you can see how excited I get from that response. So I basically said, hey, if you are going to be doing this needs to be filmed or documented. It could be a documentary.
So you're planting the seeds.
I said, who do I talk to so I don't miss this huge moment in Waukesha's history? So she did say that the public safety officer or the Waukesha Public Information Officer will be reaching out sometime this week. So that's very exciting for me as a Waukesha resident, as a paranormal investigator, as a historian, as a filmmaker. Everything is kind of colliding into the perfect moment.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of history, I just want to take a quick pause, Josh. Because we discovered, again, one of the things I get from Up North News is there's a lot of history references, what happened. And this week is the 53rd anniversary of the launch of one of the greatest rock and roll albums of all time, Led Zeppelin 4. Ooh. And some people call it the Zoso album or the Black Dog album because that's the first song in the album. But it's I even gave Greg license to pick. There's so many. Every song in that album is a great song. There's no losers. Like even isn't the Battle of Evermore on that?
Yeah,
like great.
And people will say like, you got to play Stairway to Heaven. You got to play. No, I play When the Levee Breaks because I get to do what I want to do.
And this song reminds me of one of my favorite scenes in the movie Argo, when the guys are all hiding out in the Canadian embassy and they find out, or Canadian consul, and they find out that they're leaving the next day, and they break out the whiskey and they start playing this song, and it's just so it's a really powerful moment. But yeah, that's a great when the levee breaks.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll have to have a Led Zeppelin dedicated show sometime here, like maybe in the slower times of February or something like that. So, but anyway, back with Josh Hughes. You mentioned as a filmmaker, you are working on a film, correct? Or there's something on the and is it in Ireland or where? I forgot. I think check my notes again.
I had mentioned I'd been to Ireland, and I had a paranormal experience at the Hellfire Club. If you're familiar with that location outside of Dublin, it's this like 350-year-old structure that a bunch of guys built on the hill so they could go there, play poker, drink.
It's called the Hellfire what?
Hellfire Club.
Club. Okay. That's okay.
Right. So it's just a gentleman's club, right? Well, not in the modern day context of a gentleman's club, but they would go there and they would have their fun. But there's a story that they believe that one night, a rainy night, this traveler comes to play poker with the gang, and the story says that it was the devil himself, that he visited this club. Now, and ever since then, very bad things have happened there.
Yeah.
So
is it a traveler in the sense of like Irish travelers, or just somebody traveling? Because that's significant here.
I would say, I wouldn't say that I would know the specifics on that, but just like an Irish traveler, like just somebody who nobody knew, came and knocked on the door, and they invited him in, and then people were dying after that. The club burned. It's made of stone, so the whole thing is still there, but there's no doors, there's no windows. It's pretty much just this big rock on the hill.
Wow.
But I had a very moving experience there that led me to develop a documentary project about castles, stone structures, all throughout Ireland, where people still experience paranormal activity.
Okay.
Even though it's not a traditional building, because there's no walls, there's no doors. It almost seems like you shouldn't be experiencing ghosts in places that don't feel like they're actual buildings still,
Okay. Sounds good. And how are we doing on time here, Greg?
Got a little over a minute.
Okay. So we're going to build this because we want to give you time to explain your experience, if you're willing to, like what you experienced there. And then also, too, I want to do just a little deeper dive into the trick, because if it is an Irish traveler, that makes the story more significant. And for any Peaky Blinders fans out there, you'll see where I'm going with this. And so much more here on this beautiful Saturday morning, November 9th, Veterans Day weekend. This Week in Waukesha continues on WAUK 540 AM and the Civic Media app.
You're listening to Civic Media. Find the latest news, information, and archives of all your favorite shows on the Civic Media website, civicmedia.us.
Hey, we're back on This Week in Waukesha. These will not be forgotten years. Another great Midnight Oil hit. And speaking of not be forgotten years, a fellow passionista of history, Josh Hughes from Waukesha Ghost Walk, is my guest. And I think we're very much kindred spirit in that way, that we do have a passion for history. And I'm intrigued by this. I want to just kind of wrap up this conversation about the I forgot, what's the name of the club outside of Dublin where you had a paranormal experience?
Yeah, so during the break, I looked up a bit more specific information about the Hellfire Club.
Hellfire Club. What a great name. Doesn't sound like a gentleman's club name.
But,
in a way.
It was built in the 1730s, and I guess the original person that built it, there was a nearby graveyard, and he took one of the headstones and put it on his fireplace. And that's when they say, like, the the spirits that he disturbed started wreaking havoc on this building that he had built. And the reason it's called the Hellfire Club is a number of years later, after this gentleman had passed, there was this Irish Hellfire Club that was known for dabbling in black magic. So they would go there, they would
Sure.
have big parties, alcohol, sex, all that sort of stuff. And the story goes that one
That
night,
kind of
this
gentleman club.
stranger right. This stranger shows up to play cards, and one of the gentlemen at the table drops the card, and as he goes to pick it up, he looks under the table and he sees that this stranger has hooves for feet. So they
Nice.
believed that this person that showed up was the devil. So
Wow.
after that, I mean, a lot of people just had a lot of misfortune,
Mhm.
and they essentially abandoned the club because they believed that it was cursed by evil spirits or maybe
Sure.
even the devil
Sure.
himself. So, very interesting stories and history
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah. So now the reason, so I mentioned distinguishing what was meant by the traveler. So Irish travelers is now the politically correct term for Irish gypsies, or what when my grandmother was living there was called tinkers. Now I can say that here in America, but over there it's kind of like using the N word or some sort of racist or
Okay.
some other slant. It's just not really appropriate.
Right.
But they were kind of considered the dregs. They weren't treated very well, and there was always kind of this real clash between the Irish travelers and the rest of Irish society, because they didn't own any land. They just squatted, or they moved from one place to another. And
Sure.
for any fans of the show Peaky Blinders, which I loved, the Shelby family, which was a real family that started the Peaky Blinders, that they were descended from these Irish travelers, and they're in England too. They're in America, as we know, and just interesting group of people. We talk about it. I'm sure a lot of paranormal studies would take place around the Irish travelers, and again, because of and maybe this person entered, maybe they knew he was this T word coming in, and because maybe he had money or they wanted to take his money, they decided it's a game of cards you'll play with anybody within reason.
Right.
Or like I said, maybe it was this strange person just traveling through that they'd never met before, and turns out with hooves on his feet was the devil. So
Yeah. Who knows, right?
it'd be interesting to if there's any more light shed on that would be interesting to know, especially again given the prejudices, if you will, or disdain that respectable society had for the travelers. So, but
Right.
now you said you had an experience there when you were at the site of the old Hellfire Club. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is it's on a big hill, about a half hour outside of Dublin, and there's an easy route that takes about 10 minutes to walk up a very large hill to get to it,
Right.
or there's an hour winding path to get up to it. So it's very similar to a state park here in Wisconsin.
Okay.
So we took the hard route, which was very difficult, and I dragged my wife up this hill on a Monday afternoon. So we get up there, and it just kind of like, as you just come over the peak, you just see this big, disgusting looking stone building. And it is quite marvelous once you look at it. And nobody was there, Monday afternoon.
Right. Daytime.
And during the day. And as we walk in, you just hear like this disgusting, like, it was a bird, but it was just like this roar almost came out of the building.
Get
There must have
out.
been-
Like a banshee.
There must have been this bird in the old fireplace, and
Yeah.
it was echoing, and we were maybe not even 4 steps within the building, and my wife's like, I'm out of here, I'm done with this, so she waits outside.
Yeah.
And the basement is flooded, and the walls are gross, and the stairs aren't very safe. And as I'm exploring and looking about, I decide it's about time to leave. I'm not feeling easy in here anymore, and it was almost as like something was like pushing me back into the building, and it was like, you're not leaving. It was a very, very bizarre feeling and
Wow.
experience. And if you've ever been in a haunted building, I know you've said there's some stories about the radio station.
That's right. Yeah. I'll have to ask Greg if he's had any.
Paranormal energies can give you that sensation. So
Yeah.
it just really was perplexing why I was there alone on a Monday in the middle of the day, why I was, feeling these sensations. And then as we're outside the grounds exploring further, a huge rainbow from east to west across the sky directly over the Hellfire Club. So it was probably the most Irish thing you could experience. It's just marvelous, gigantic rainbow at this place that I just had this very bizarre experience at. So it was a very interesting encounter, I'll say.
Okay. Interesting. So, and I'm excited because we have a good list of other items you experienced or are involved in projects, films. So yeah, we got a lot. And then of course the launch of your new haunted pub crawl. We're going to talk about that in the next hour and so much more. And I don't know if you ever heard this. Supposedly when a person dies, that you lose like 1/8 of an ounce of body weight. And that supposedly there's no like scientific explanation for that. Is that something you believe?
That's one I have not heard before.
Okay. So, but I just figured it's because of your belief in, I guess you'd say spirituality and the paranormal, that it's not something you would easily dismiss either.
Right.
So terrific. And now that you're working for Carroll too, I know there was a murder that took place at Carroll and some paranormal activity surrounding that. And they'd kind of frowned on that kind of exposure, even though it was a long time ago. Now that you work there, you think, are they warming up to the idea, or you're kind of worried about keeping your job? Fair enough. Apologies that I asked that. He wasn't expecting that question, if anyone from Carroll's listening, so you're in the clear.
My team knows I love this. They see me as the resident ghost expert, but
nice.
I kind of I keep the stories contained, not to attract bad attention.
Sounds great. Well, we're going to learn more about what Josh Hughes of Waukesha Ghost Walks and Carroll University is up to in our second hour, and so much more, including a local boy playing in the state finals in soccer today. And holiday delivery theft the season's already started. So got a story there to share that has a good ending so far. And so much more, including the Carroll Minute here in hour number 2 on This Week in Waukesha, WAUK 540 AM. Stick around. November 9th, 2024. If it's 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, it's still time for This Week in Waukesha, Hour 2. I'm your host, Don Brown, and I'm coming to you live and local from the office of former Alderman Don Paul Brown here in Radio Park. And I am joined by the legendary Greg Bach on the board. Greg, great to have you. And as I mentioned, Greg supports Pat Kreitlow on Up North News Mondays through Fridays, 6 to 8. But then he comes back on as a co-host with Jane Matnier from Matnier on Air, another terrific show.
Thank you.
And before we continue with our guest, Josh Hughes from Waukesha Ghost Tours, Greg, I got a trivia question for you about Jane Matnier. So how well do you really know Jane? And here it is. It's my favorite. I ran it by Jane, and she didn't even know.
Oh, boy.
So here we go. So what do Jane Matnier and actress Tippi Hedren have in common? Tippi Hedren, known for The Birds, and also the mother of Melanie Griffin and grandmother of Dakota Johnson. And so here you go, Greg.
They both had a deep friendship with Alfred Hitchcock.
No, I'm sure you're being very sarcastic.
I know. You're like setting booby traps, quicksand, and like landmines all around me. I had to just keep it very simple and
that was
incredibly
great. I love
wrong.
it. Yeah. So no, it's fantastic. And again, Jane didn't even know the answer. They both lived in New Ulm, Minnesota. That's ULM, New Ulm, Minnesota. Also the home of Shell's Beer. And I only know that because I was friends with a neighbor, the Reverend Scott Olhafen, used to be the Reverend at Trinity Lutheran Church. And when I was an alderman, I made a point to get to know all the community leaders that lived in my district. And
Trinity Lutheran, that's on White Rock, right?
That's the one, yep.
Yeah,
You're right, yeah.
Yep.
So he left to, he was reassigned to a congregation out in New Ulm, Minnesota. And so what do? I go to Google and Wikipedia and found, and they... In any Wikipedia page, there's like the famous people from there. And there's Tippi Hedren. And then I was reading, fast forward a couple years later, and I'm reading Jane's bio and amazing career in radio. And one of her stops, one of her tours of duty was in New Ulm, Minnesota. So that's a bad on New Ulm that they don't celebrate Tippi Hedren.
Josh, this is the tip of the iceberg of
the essential Don Brown,
of the essential information and pieces of trivia that you know.
That's it. And it's what one of my friends called just the king of mindless information or meaningless information. But
well, you cared enough to find out about people, so that's laudable. I like that. So.
It's news you could use. And I became a fan of Shell's beer, so I would even take a trip there. And
did this just become a spot for Shell's beer, like the whole thing?
I will say I didn't. When you get here early, I didn't have time to. I don't want to make coffee and have it sit there when my wife wakes up. So I get here, and there's no coffee places open on my way down. I get here early.
Yeah.
But our little coffee, our Keurig, that Folgers coffee is. I feel like doing that Samuel L. Jackson part from.
Please keep it clean.
No, the gourmet coffee scene in Pulp Fiction. So, but that is good coffee. So cheers to Folgers.
This segment of This Week in Waukesha,
non-paying sponsors,
Folgers and Shell's beer.
That's it. So, but now back to Josh Hughes. We're finishing up with talking about these projects. Let's start with the new edition, the new offering of Waukesha Ghost Walks. And pub crawl has got to excite a lot of people. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, this is my I just wrapped up my 4th season of doing the Ghost Walks. And that typically runs like May to October, right? Mm-hmm. And every year I try to... further advance, develop the tour, not just for the people that come on it, but for myself, right? Otherwise I would get bored. I want to keep doing new, fun, interesting things. So I have partnered with a local haunted bar, Club 400. I know the owners quite well. I said, hey, let's do a haunted pub crawl, right?
Those are great guys, by the way.
Buildings have a lot of history. There's a lot of haunted history in downtown Waukesha. So we have 2 bars signed up already. A third is in the works, but you can plan on this December, hopefully, or early January, a 3-hour haunted pub crawl visiting some of Waukesha's historical haunts.
Nice.
And enjoying a couple beverages along the way, right?
Can you name the other pubs, including Club 400?
Yeah, so Club 400, I've investigated there a number of times. Lots of interesting things going on, especially in the basement. Bosco's Social Club, which is on Main Street.
Love Bosco's.
They have a very interesting story about a previous owner and perhaps his girlfriend that was murdered in the basement. And then we have been talking to Nice Ash, who have their own interesting stories.
Nice Ash Cigar Bar.
I've been in Hannon's. There's interesting stories there.
I bet.
I've heard rumors about what is the Irish pub?
House of Guinness?
House of Guinness. Sorry,
that's
I
okay.
Sweatshirt. I drew a blank. But House of Guinness. There are some stories about some activity in the 40s. But upon approaching them with this concept, they said, no, thank you. So,
oh, really?
Some people don't like to talk about spirits, ghosts, haunted stories.
More proof. Yeah, more proof that House of Guinness is Irish in name only. And I'm an Irishman, so I can speak with authority. So,
right. So, but we got 2 signed up so far, waiting on a third. But I hope it opens up a new crowd to this. Have a little bit different style of fun. And then just bring more business to downtown Waukesha.
Well, and I've been trying unsuccessfully to get our softball parents involved because we always look at doing different things like pub crawls and so this would be perfect. And they're warming up to the concept, definitely. Especially now that we've added a pub crawl to it. I think that then because I think the fear is that they're going to go an hour and a half without a beverage in their hand. But now, like I said, in 3 hours, they
3 hours with multiple beverages.
So it's a win-win.
Yeah, it's going to be smaller, a little more intimate. You're going to be able to visit the areas in these bars that you don't normally get to go to. So Club 400 has a haunted basement. You're going to get to go down there and use, my paranormal investigation equipment to possibly have your own experience. So it's not just stories. You actually get to do the ghost hunting.
That's really cool. I think that's a really great addition to the concept. And really quick, in the show, too, we'll be talking about a local boy from my neighborhood who's playing in the state championship today in soccer. So stick around for that. We got the Carol Minute and a salute to veterans, too. But returning to Josh, too, is one of my notes here is something about the Milwaukee Paracon and the Hill family curse. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so earlier in October, every year there's the Milwaukee Paracon, which is a day-long activity full of speakers, vendors, and just a good group of people who all believe in all this weird stuff, right? So it's ghosts, Bigfoot, aliens, you name it. There's lots to learn and lots of friendships to develop. So I was the last speaker of the day at 4 o'clock, and I spoke for 45 minutes about probably the story I've enjoyed the most, which is about a 200-year-old haunted farmhouse on the outskirts of Waukesha near Vernon Marsh, where close to 24 people have passed away since between 1880 and 1970. So it's a very tragic property, very it's an awful story. A lot of death on that property, but very very interesting as to why there's been basically a curse on this property for close to 100 years.
Wow. Interesting. And then there's another part of Wisconsin, the Jericho Haunted Trinity in Jericho, Wisconsin. It's not Waukesha, but
it's not Waukesha. But
where's it located again? Is that near?
So Jericho, Wisconsin, is on the shores of Lake Winnebago.
That's right.
It's on the east side of the lake.
Okay.
So a very very small town. But my buddy, who was also at the Milwaukee Paracon, he said, you're going to be up in that part of the state, you have to go visit this church. So it's a convent, a church, and an old school that this couple has taken over, and they're renovating it, and they're doing haunted tours. So they invited me. They said, come bring your camera. I did a little video piece on it, but a very interesting history about a Catholic church in the middle of nowhere that's experiencing paranormal activity beyond what I can comprehend.
Okay.
It doesn't quite make sense why they're experiencing it there, but
sure.
They have a lot of belief into the reasons why the things they're experiencing there are happening.
Are any of these like apparitions, like the apparition at Knock in Ireland, or Fatima, or Lourdes,
So
or is it more?
essentially, this place is like a paranormal ley line. So what you're experiencing there isn't the spirits of people that died there or visit there. You can talk to your grandpa, your dad, or a loved one that's passed away,
Really?
and they have
I'm going.
dozens of pieces of evidence.
Okay.
And I said to them, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would your grandpa be in this Jericho school in
Yeah.
the middle of nowhere?
Never been there in his life, probably. Yeah.
Right. And it's like plugging into the internet for paranormal. Like it's like a hot spot, a
Yeah.
lightning bolt in the ground where you can
Sure.
essentially interact with anybody that you might have had contact with.
That's cool. Well, and I got to say, we're here in Radio Park, where where WRJN, one of the civic media stations, is headquartered, and there's been some paranormal activity here. But also, you can kind of experience that for anyone that remembers Paul Harvey. WRJN does Paul Harvey segments. I forget what that is, Greg, but I think it's weekdays. Like it's either like after 1 or.
Yeah, it's in the afternoon.
Yes, but I loved Paul Harvey as a kid, and for those of you not familiar with him, it's definitely a great walk through American, folk history, folk culture. Paul Harvey was one of the greats, so I highly encourage that if you want to have a paranormal experience or close enough to one. Paul Harvey, good day. So, but terrific. So, and before I forget too, is you're going to be on a show on this Tuesday at 9 called Talking Weird. Tell us about that real quick.
Yeah. So I met the individual I met Dean at the Paracon.
Dean Bertram. Okay.
He's Australian, but now he's living in Wisconsin.
All right. Shrimp on the barbie.
Very nice guy that did a documentary about the Shaver mystery.
Okay.
Which it was a huge deep dive into things that I've never even heard of.
Okay.
But I met him. We connected because we're both filmmakers, and he said, "Why don't you come on my show, Talking Weird, once my busy season is done, which is October." So yeah, that's gonna be Tuesday from 9 to 10 p.m. I don't quite know what we're talking about yet. It's gonna be just like a nice open conversation like this. But
and is that on television or is it a podcast?
It's a podcast, and I believe it's streaming on YouTube and Facebook. So
very cool. So we'll look for that.
People want to hear even more weird stuff.
Sounds good. Well, we're going to hear some more weird stuff from Josh Hughes, including Waukesha's paranormal and UFO history that we've covered in previous shows and worth bringing up again, as well as the Carol Minutes coming up. And again, we're celebrating a local boy doing good in the state finals in soccer. And unfortunately, the holiday delivery theft has started to be has already begun. And more on This Week in Waukesha, WUK 540 AM. Shit.
Talk about
You're listening to This Week in Waukesha. I'm your host, Don Brown. I'm joined by the legendary Greg Bach on the board and Waukesha resident, CMH grad, and all the things.
Not a Waukesha resident anymore. I've lived there a long
a native son.
Okay.
So, yeah. I was going to, is it your aunt or your cousin, Jane, the former Jane Bach Carlson?
Janie is my cousin, but cousin. But second or third cousin.
You got it.
She's Aunt Janie to me.
Aunt Janie, love it. So, yeah, I should have sent her a prompt, or at least told her son Travis that you'd be on so she could listen. And maybe she is. So, if she is,
hello, Aunt Janie.
Yeah, and touchdown Tony Carlson. Hope you're having a great Saturday morning. So, I am here with Josh Hughes, and Josh can perhaps, as now that he's an employee of Carroll University, can help with the Carroll Minute. That song that I've now, at least through the season here, you just heard is a band called Guards, and the song's called Silver Lining. And for any of you Badger fans or Big Ten football fans, you see that animated commercial from the Big Ten that shows all the locations. And now that we're coast to coast, pretty cool. Global domination, go Big Ten. But I just love that song, and it's a great way to talk about college football Saturday. And the Pios are back home after a tough loss, a 56-3 loss to number one ranked. That's number one in the country, North Central. And they're hosting Illinois Wesleyan. And if they win today and they win next week when they host Carthage, they will have their third winning season in 4 years. And the only reason they didn't have a winning season last year, they were 5-5, so they didn't have a losing season. But when they were playing Carthage last year, they a few key players had went to a party and had consumed alcohol, and Coach Buddha heard about that, and he would not allow them to play, which many would say was the right thing to do, and that's why they lost a heartbreaker to Carthage, I think, in the last seconds. So things are looking good for the Pios in football today, but more exciting Carroll University news comes on the women's side of the student-athlete equation. And bear with me a moment here while I get to those notes. Yes, the women's soccer team beat Wheaton 2-0 earlier this week, thanks to goals by Grace Tamilty and Mary Sagstad. And their goalkeeper, let's see, Carroll's now gone 463 consecutive minutes without allowing a goal, which spans 5+ games. And they're playing North Central in the CCIW finals today at Schneider Stadium. So when the Pios are done, hopefully beating up on the Titans of Illinois Wesleyan, that at 6 p.m., the girls got next, and they're playing for the CCIW final. So we're really excited. And as Coach Buddha says, pack the Schneid at 1 and at 6 and cheer on your Pios. That's just great news. And then on the cross-country side, Carroll freshman, the diaper dandy, Keegan Canoe, has been named to the CCIW and Wisconsin Women's First-Year Student Athlete of the Year Award for her performance at last Saturday's CCIW Cross-Country Championships. She's a native of Brookfield and a 2024 Brookfield Central grad. Canoe led Carroll at the CCIW Championships with a 4th-place finish. And no Carroll women's runner has recorded a higher finish in that annual meet. That's 22 minutes, 23.09 seconds since 2016. So Canoe finished with the team's top time in 4 of the 6 races she has competed in this season. Her team at the CCIW Championships marks a collegiate, it says PR for Canoe. Recorded a sub 23-minute time for the first time in 5 6K races this season. So way to go. Congrats to Coach Sean Thielitz and his team on a great season and for recruiting that fantastic, that freshman sensation out of Brookfield. Now, women's basketball team, which stole the hearts of Pio Nation by winning their CCIW title last year and hosting an NCAA March Madness first round there at the Van Female Fieldhouse, as I like to call it. I know it's called Van Male, but it's really become the most difficult venue to play in Division III college women's basketball, thanks to the Lady Pios and their coach Lindsay Schultz. And they started the season this week with a big win over MSOE and preseason All-American Olivia Ranhel, senior, led Carroll with 23 points, moving her into 7th place in program history for career points. So I imagine she'll be moving high up the ladder. And highly encourage everybody to check out Carroll women's basketball. It really is a great venue there at Van Male. And they've got such a great thing going on as they're heading into another winning season, hopefully a championship season. So got to be excited. Now, does that excitement extend to the staff, Josh? Do you feel that that spirit, pun intended?
So people that don't know, I do photo and video for the marketing department.
Very cool.
And I've filmed Packers games. I filmed high school football. These really big moments, like really exciting moments. But like when we got the host, we were the site for the Division III, the first round last year that the women's basketball team was playing in, and like that was just such an electric evening. Like Van Female was absolutely packed. I've never seen it that busy. So many students, so much excitement for that women's basketball team. Like even though the outcome was not what they wanted, it was so much fun just being there to experience it. So I'm looking forward to seeing those women play even better this year.
We missed the game because South had won their playoff game against North a few days before, and they were playing that Friday night at Wisconsin Lutheran. Con Knipple, who was a freshman, is killing it for Duke, led the Wisconsin Lutheran all the way to the state title. But I was able to catch that game on YouTube, and even on the video, you could sense that excitement. And I know it was a disappointing loss for the Pios, but that's March Madness, and they played a team out of the West Coast, or out of Pacific University or something like that.
Puget Sound,
yeah, and they played a heck of a game, and that's the beauty of March Madness is you're putting all these teams together from all over the country, and when you have a chance in the big dance, you don't care how great the other team is or whether they're number one ranked. You're giving it all. So that was a really, really fun season for the Pioneers women's basketball team, and really looking forward to seeing some more great things this season. Yeah. So, and speaking of great things too, is now I want to give a shout out to Dawson Zur, senior goalkeeper at Lake Country Lutheran High School. They had a 3-1 championship win, semifinal win on Thursday to advance to the finals today. They beat Kiel on Thursday, and they're playing another. Give me a second here. I believe yes, they will be playing at 11 a.m. at Uline Field against Shoreland Lutheran. And you'll appreciate this kid, Dawson. The quote he gave to the Waukesha Freeman is, because this is their first state title in history, in their school's history, at least for soccer. And he had said in the quote, "It's all about history." And I was telling the guys, let's go out and make some. So you got to love that from a senior. And so I'm wishing them well. Go out there, Dawson, and make history. And we're all proud of you back in Banting Park where you're from. His dad, John, was a Waukesha South grad. He played baseball at Waukesha South with Frank Caliendo, who was his best friend, and they were in each other's weddings. And Frank's dad was the baseball coach. So a lot of great brushes with greatness there, and wishing Dawson all the best today. And so much more as we continue with Josh Hughes here on This Week in Waukesha WUK, as well as a salute to veterans. So stick around.
We met as soulmates on Paris Island. We left as inmates from an asylum. And we were sharp as knives. And we were
We're going to let this one play a little, Greg.
Like tameless horses, we left in plastic as numbered corpses, and we learned fast to travel light. Our arms were heavy, but our bellies were tight.
Hey, we're back in This Week in Waukesha, and that was a Good Night Saigon by Billy Joel, which was a really great ode to the Vietnam veterans. And around the time I was in high school, I graduated in 85, there had been, starting in the early mid-80s, a revisitation on the issue of Vietnam veterans who for many years have been treated maybe not so well by society in particular, because of the final outcome of the war and because a lot of the activism against the war when it had taken place, and a lot of the blame was put on them when they were doing nothing more but their service to their country. And it was a redemptive moment there in the 80s when a lot of them were recognized and celebrated, and parades had been reestablished honoring them and their service. And, you know, you hate to keep score of wars like they're football games, but you know, even though they had, I guess, technically tied, or some would say lost, the Vietnam conflict, you know, that's what led to the Soviet Union's war in Afghanistan, which became their Vietnam, a Vietnam they could not afford, and really led to the crumbling of the Soviet Empire and a lot of the positive things, perestroika, the tearing down of the Berlin Wall. And so in that regard, but either way, no matter what the outcome, we should praise and we should thank and respect our veterans for their service to their country, especially when they're putting their lives in ultimate risk, in harm's way. And so keeping them very close to my heart. I've known a lot of you. Tim Nekich, a fellow former alderman's been on my show a couple times, and he was on last year during Veterans Day. And so I think of so many. I think of my next door neighbor, George, back home, who lost his battle after the war, if you will, during my college years, and is fondly remembered and sorely missed. And, of course, my own father, who served proudly in Korea, and so many other great veterans out there, especially a lot of sons and daughters of Waukesha. And you can celebrate them today at the Schutze Recreation Center. It's called Operation Honor, a Salute to Veterans, and it's presented by INEO, Waukesha Engines, so it's great to see their support. And it's going to start with a care package drive from 3 to 4 today, and then a really neat Salute to Veterans program from 4:30 to 7, and that I believe that includes dinner and some talks by some former veterans, and just a great lineup and a great way to celebrate our veterans. And then, of course, on Veterans Day Monday from 10:30 to 11, there will be a dedication, a moment to honor our veterans at Veterans Park on 710 Northwest Avenue there, kind of at the end of downtown there as you're going down Main Street heading west. And I know Mayor Riley will be there, and obviously several other veterans there to pay their respects to our veterans on this day. And so many. And I think another fun way to honor our veterans is, I believe, if this is still in place, at I mentioned this earlier, a new store has opened up called Music Success. It's on National in New Berlin, in what a lot of people call the Burghards Plaza. It's or where Walmart used to be. It's 15445 West National Avenue, Suite 240. And it's founded by Pat Nettesheim, one of the co-founders of Guitars for Vets. And Music Success will transcend the mission of Guitars of Guitars for Vets by providing free guitars and guitar lessons not only to veterans, but also first responders and anyone dealing with PTSD and other mental health conditions who can benefit from some great music therapy. And the Music Success store there sells really great instruments secondhand, and the proceeds go to this mission so that they can provide guitars and other instruments and free lessons. Again, free of charge to those participating that could benefit from that. So there's a grand opening taking place. The store's already open, but a grand opening is taking place there that afternoon and evening for Music Success on Veterans Day. So I think that's a great way to honor our veterans. So now back to Josh Hughes with Waukesha Ghost Walks. Have there been many veterans paranormal activities in Waukesha or in your experience that has come across your way or you've discovered?
Now that you mentioned that, so we mentioned Club 400 in the previous segments,
Right.
which is, it used to be a hotel in the 1880s.
Oh, wow.
And eventually it was purchased and fixed up to be Club 400. But
Okay.
at one point in time, it was the upstairs of it used to be like a boarding house,
Okay.
and it used to be also like a veterans home.
Mm.
So there was a number of veterans that
Wow.
would live upstairs, and they'd walk down and get breakfast and drinks during the day. But so there have been a few interesting situations where the current owners or guests have believed that they've experienced perhaps a ghost of a veteran that was there at one point in time.
Wow.
They've seen shadow figures. They've had words come through on our devices that maybe allude to a conflict or a soldier that still remains there in the afterlife. So
Okay.
there've been a few veteran-related paranormal activity situations in that specific building.
Neat. Cool. Thanks. Yeah, and as on previous shows you mentioned too, speaking of veterans or wars, that a year after the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, that Mary Todd Lincoln had come to Waukesha. It was during the Springs era, right, for a psychic medium. Tell us about that again. Never gets old.
So Mary Todd Lincoln, who we know, of course, is Abraham Lincoln's wife.
First Lady, yep.
Right. So after the war, after Abraham Lincoln passed away, she came to Waukesha because at that point in time, it was known as the Spring City, of course. So there were, a couple dozen springs all across the city that if you drink this water, it was said to have like these magical healing powers, right?
Nice.
But at the same time, Waukesha was also a hotspot in the country for the spiritualist movement and mediumship. In nearby Whitewater, they had the Morris Pratt Institute, which taught people basically how to become mediums, how to talk to the dead.
Nice.
So she came here for 2 reasons. She wanted to heal after a very difficult civil war. Mentally and physically, she was just pretty much drained. She came here to drink water and to attend seances because she wanted to have like that last "I love you, goodbye" message to Abraham. I'm doing well, something like that, right? So she spent the entire summer in Waukesha at a resort, and pretty much people just left her alone because she had a very difficult, obviously, past 4 years. So I believe in a Freeman article, it was actually stated that people would see her kind of floating throughout Waukesha in a ghost-like state because she was just, she wasn't there, right? But they just left her alone. They didn't talk to her. They didn't bother her. And then summer, she just went about her way.
But
so
we can speculate that she had an audience with her late husband, and so that the ghost of Abraham Lincoln had spent a summer in Waukesha. Is that a stretch? Or?
You could stretch that out a bit. You could
Honest
say
Abe.
maybe Abraham Lincoln was visiting Waukesha to say goodbye to his wife. So, that's a good point to make. I might have to add that to my tour. Yeah,
that could be fun. And then I'm also reminded, too, that there was a world-famous veterinarian in Waukesha during the Springs era who'd had a extramarital relationship, and that this scorned mistress had sought revenge by killing his wife, correct? And it had been kind of one of those murder of the century type trials, and there's been some paranormal.
Yeah, Dr. David Roberts was the name of the world-famous veterinarian. And
buried at Prairie Home Cemetery.
Yep. He was well known throughout Waukesha and his travels for being a womanizer. He had frequent affairs his entire life, but the one that ended up getting him in the most trouble was this local school teacher named Grace Lusk. And she was a 39-year-old single school teacher, which in the early 1900s, being a 39-year-old single woman was not the norm, right?
Yeah. Sure.
And the affair started between them, and things were very, very different because as it would come to pass, Grace was a bit more extreme than all of David's other extramarital affairs. So eventually, David's wife, Mary, confronted Grace about this affair, and Grace shot David's wife twice in the chest, killing her. Attempted to commit suicide, which did not work. And then the trial of the century, where photographers and journalists from all across the country came to Waukesha to witness this world-famous veterinarian, and as the media had labeled Grace as the sex-crazed school teacher. So she spent that summer in the old Waukesha County Jail, which you now know is apartments.
Okay.
But they renovated the entire third floor to be Grace's apartment because at the time they didn't have women that were in jail.
Wow.
So at the end of that, she was convicted of first-degree murder, spent time in Waupun prison, where she actually wrote 2 books about prison reform.
Oh, wow.
And then David remarried 3 more times, still continued all his affairs, passed away in the early 1950s at the age of 83. Just 2 years prior, he married another woman that was only 31 years old at the time. So David liked women and liked the young women. So you can still visit Prairie Home Cemetery to see his grave and his first wife's grave, Mary Roberts, but also his old office still exists downtown Waukesha. It's now a law firm.
Okay.
I believe that's on West Avenue.
Really?
Where they're tearing down that bank to be a hotel.
Okay.
His office is just a few doors down. Yep.
Sure.
So
wow.
they have a little memoriam. I won't say memoriam, but a small little museum exhibit in the front window there where you can see some of his items.
And there's some paranormal activity surrounding the mistress, right? Is that correct? Or some of the others?
I guess it would be more so around the building. I've heard stories that they've seen him in there. I've never been able to go in there and experience that for myself, but no, Grace, I don't think there's anything associated with her. She's buried in a cemetery far from Waukesha. So
sure.
This one, I always preface it on the tour that there is no ghost story associated with it, it's probably Waukesha's most famous true crime case.
Yeah.
And I always think that if Netflix wanted to come make a docu-series about it, it would make for quite the story.
Interesting. And speaking of quite this, is it safe for you to talk about the a murder that took place at Carroll and possible paranormal activity surrounding that? Are you able to talk about that, or would you rather push that off to another day?
It is public information, but I believe this was in the 80s, 70s or 80s.
Oh, is that recent?
There was
okay.
So there was a female student who was murdered by her boyfriend that didn't go to Carroll. I believe he disposed of the body down near the Fox River.
Okay.
And then he hung himself in St. Joseph Cemetery. And there have been reports over the years of students that believe they had seen the spirit of the female student that was murdered.
Okay.
So that's all public information that you can find in the newspaper, Carroll's newspaper and the Freeman. So
Sounds
hey,
good.
I'm just presenting it.
I appreciate that. So when we come back, we're going to wrap things up with Josh Hughes and some more plans on his paranormal work and the Waukesha Ghost Walks pub crawl tour and so much more. James Santel is in residence here at the office of former Alderman Don Paul Brown, getting ready for his show, Atticus, a law review, which comes on at 9.
Amicus.
I call it. He embodies the spirit of Atticus Finch. So to me, it's Atticus. We'll be right back.
Remember Charlie, remember Baker, they left their childhood on every acre.
We're back on This Week in Waukesha, and this, of course, was the theme song to the HBO series Band of Brothers, which was a really wonderful portrait of men who had served in World War II in the European theater. And there was a sequel to that called The Pacific, which was pretty much the same thing, but in the Pacific theater. And really well done and true life accounts. And Tom Hanks was involved in that after saving his work in Saving Private Ryan. And I encourage everybody to read Tom Brokaw's The Greatest Generation if you haven't already. If you're a slow reader like me, it's a collection of basically short testimonials by different veterans from around the country, and some really amazing stories. One of my favorite is a guy from Chicago who was he was shot in the head in like Norway or somewhere in Northern Europe, and survived but lost his sight, and came back to Chicago, and someone had turned him on to that there was an insurance company that was giving courses for blind veterans. They could train and become insurance agents, and while he was there, the secretary at the training school met him, and they fell in love, and they got married and had like 10 children. The guy had an amazing career as an insurance agent and professional. And the story ends by one of the daughters telling Tom Brokaw that during the Vietnam War, a lot of these veterans that had lost their sight in combat and were obviously very disillusioned would make their way to his house. They were invited to his house on his instruction. And she said these guys would come in very discouraged and obviously very upset. And by the end of the day, they'd be drinking beers with their dad and listening to the White Sox. They were a Southside family there on the radio, and eventually making their way over to the barbecue and having some burgers and dogs, and really feeling much better about their future. And so many amazing stories in that book, That Greatest Generation, and they're all true. And here's with Josh Hughes of Waukesha. Ghost Walk. Are there any members of your family that serve that you'd like to recognize today, or any like close friends or people you know for Veterans Day? I know I'm putting you on the spot here, so.
No, I have my dad's dad served in World War II. He was a tank driver, so he
Nice.
was in Italy and France. So like seeing that movie Fury from a few years ago was
Yeah.
a really interesting look into the life of the gentleman that served in a tank together. My wife's grandpa was in the U.S. Coast Guard, and he was actually deployed after they dropped the atomic bombs.
Oh,
And he was actually on the ship when the Japanese surrendered to the U.S.
wow.
So he has some very significant photos of
Sure.
the aftermath of Hiroshima.
Yep.
Literally, it just looks like a desert. It's just very, very surreal to see photos from somebody who was there firsthand.
Wow.
Yeah, so I have a lot of close family that served in probably the most I don't want to say iconic, but like
Yeah.
the Greatest Generation.
Oh,
World
sure.
War II is kind of like the epitome of when you imagine war, right?
Yeah. Yep. So, when I imagine again, as a fellow passionista of history, that World War II history has got to be pretty interesting to you as well, or you're part of that thirst that people have. I mean, there's so much out there in World War II history. So, but
Very
returning
much
to
so.
your work now with Ghost Tours, I want to remind everybody you're the pub crawl, Ghost Tour pub crawl is that what we're calling it, or Ghost Walk pub crawl?
I'm going to think of a more creative name than that, but tentatively, you can plan on December 28th, which is a Saturday from 3 to 6 p.m. That seems to be the time and date that everyone has agreed to for this first one. Looking at about 10 to 15 people, so a little more intimate, probably around $35 a person too. So it's a 3-hour
Okay.
tour, discounts on drinks, it's an extended portion of what I do.
Hey,
for
discount and drinks. Got to emphasize that.
discounted drinks, not free drinks, but you get a nice
Hey.
discount. And it's an excuse to go out on a Saturday when you would normally not be out and
Right.
learn a lot about Waukesha and maybe experience a ghost for yourself.
Sounds good. Well, we'll look to confirm that too as we get closer to the date. And then, hey, going back to Veterans Day real quick, one thing I wanted to say is that for those of you who have veterans in your family, if you're not aware, Waukesha County has the County Veterans Service Office, the CVSO. It's a county government office in Waukesha on the Moore Downs Golf Course, 514 Riverview Avenue. And it opens up 8 a.m. every day during the week. And the phone number is 262-548-7732. Again, that's 262-548-7732. So if you have a loved one, a veteran that is dealing with any kind of issues at all related to their war experience, please get in touch with them, because you'd be surprised at what services or resources are available for your loved one there. So Josh, in the final 3 minutes here, what have we not covered here about your work in Ghost Walks and the Paranormal that you want to emphasize? You can't let people leave this show without knowing. Excuse me.
I always like to say that experiencing something paranormal, whether it's a ghost, a spirit, heck, if it's an alien or the Bigfoot, it's the most thrilling thing that I think anybody can experience before they die. It's such a rush of emotions that it's like, how can I actually be experiencing this? So I always encourage people to just, if you're curious, look it up, maybe visit a haunted house.
Keep an open mind.
Keep an open mind. And on that note, I am always trying to develop the tour more and develop my Waukesha knowledge of maybe haunted stories in the area. So if anybody has a haunted house, a ghost story, if their house they believe is haunted, reach out. I would love to chat. I do this for free. It's not like I'm charging you to come check out your ghosts. I visited many haunted houses in Waukesha. So if you have your own story and you want to talk about it, you want to know more, reach out and I'd be happy to connect on that.
That sounds great. And I hope people take Josh up on that because there's so much great history, rich history in Waukesha. We didn't have enough time to talk about the UFO experience in Waukesha, so we'll have to have you back on to talk about that real soon. Yeah. And as well as so much more. And what do you have going on the rest of the day? Any paranormal work you're going to be focused on, or just time with the family?
Yeah, time with the family today. We got a lot of things to do. Winterizing the house, getting ready for that season. That's
right. You're at the lake house, right?
Yes, nice. I'm actually not in Waukesha this morning, so I
You're
actually have
the Twin Cities of Adam's friendship.
Yes. So
awesome.
I'll be busy. I'll be pretty tired by the time 6 o'clock rolls around tonight.
That sounds great. Josh Hughes, Waukesha Ghost Walks, and member of the Carroll University Communications team. Thanks so much for your time today and for your gift and for all that you do for Waukesha's celebrating our paranormal activity. Stick around, folks. James Santel is on next with Amicus Law Review. I want to thank Greg Bach for filling in for Max today. It's always an honor to be working with you. You are, again, one of the experts, and stick around. We may have a wine paint studio guest for next week to talk about that and so much more. Enjoy your Saturday. Please remember, safety is everyone's responsibility. Go to Mila Mahagav, go there, and see ya!
The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.